do it. Hello and welcome. I have got the lovely Tania with me today. This is one of my 60 conversations for my 60th birthday, and I have no idea really where this conversation is going to go today, but we just started saying a few interesting things, so I said, hang on, let's stop, let's press record and get that so that people can hear that. And you were just sharing with me how you came across the principles. So do you want to carry on and share that story about how it is you came across the 3 principles, and let's see where we go next?
That's wonderful. First of all, I'm very honoured to be one of your 60 out of the billions of people on earth.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, very, very honoured.
So yes, it was 2015, and I was taking an online business course with someone who was in the 3P community. I mean, she shares a little bit still, and she sort of just shared it as part of the course, more talking about business. And I thought, well, that sounds interesting, 3 principles. And she was at the time being coached by Michael Neill, so I looked up Michael Neill, bought his book, The Inside Out Revolution, read the book, and I don't think I'd even finished, and I had a life-changing insight. So people were like, what? So quick. Yeah, so I was very lucky, but I imagine I'd been reading other stuff and engaging with other thoughts around mind and spirituality, etc., for a while. And what had happened was I, at the time, was experiencing a lot of symptoms that we associate with perimenopause, the time of change that leads up to menopause, which has become a point in time 1 year after your last period. And so at the time, I was having 2 weeks of PMS, so lots of mood swings for half a month. Eczema, migraines, night sweats, hair loss, all kinds of other symptoms that, you know, a whole collection of them.
I had no idea you could even have those kinds of symptoms, but carry on.
Yeah, I'd been having them for a few years, and it took me a little while to sort of put it in a framework of, oh, I'm in midlife change, because for some reason I thought that happens quickly, average age 51. I don't know why I thought that, but I think many women do. Like, especially back then, there wasn't so much discussion around it. Now, particularly in the UK,
there wasn't.
There's a lot of discussion around it. And so from my early 40s, I'd been experiencing symptoms. Took me a little while to understand, oh yeah, I'm in midlife change. And then I came across the principles, and I saw in this insight that taking my thoughts seriously was a choice, and that I didn't have to do that. And that I was sort of creating issues in my life by taking my thinking seriously, and that life would probably be easier if I didn't take my thinking so seriously. And that was it. And
if only we knew.
Yeah. And everything else that that was 2015. I keep saying, I could go back to that, and that would be enough. Like, in there is everything, as far as I can see. But at the time I thought, well, that's so interesting. I think I'm probably not going to have PMS, because it felt like the PMS side, that was the whole emotional roller coaster thing. And I was like, I think I'm probably not going to have PMS anymore. And within days, all my physical symptoms and the PMS cleared up. And that was in 2015, like I said. And so then I went on a journey, and at first I was like, well, this is just interesting. I don't really know what happened. And I started learning a bit more about the principles and sharing very timidly, because I knew it sounded crazy, because there's this whole hormone story that goes along with midlife change. And it must be, well, surely you took some hormones. Surely you didn't just have an insight and all your symptoms cleared up. You stopped having night sweats and eczema and everything. But that's what happened. And then I saw how helpful what I was sharing could be with other women in similar situation who were having similar symptoms. And so I just kept on, and I've kept on until now. Yeah.
That's brilliant. And I absolutely love what you are sharing, because not in these 60 conversations, but I know very often when we come across the principles and we see this, we have areas in our lives where we don't see it, and it's kind of like that still stays very, very real for us. And I know I've spoken to some people who, you know, are looking in the various direction, and then they're sort of seeing that actually things can't just disappear because they're real outside of the principles. And it's like, there just isn't anything that is. And I'm not saying, you know, not everybody, I don't know what anyone else's journey is, but interestingly, just before we press record here, you asked me about my journey, and I can see I had, throughout my whole life really, I have had zero thinking about periods, pregnancies, menopause, and I have sailed through. Like when I hear people, you know, their journey of how difficult those things are, none of those things have ever been anything but easy for me. I just, you know, I had very light periods with no pain, no nothing, just sort of a little bit of a nuisance because you're bleeding for a few days, but nothing other than that, nothing that couldn't very, very easily be coped with. I've never been a mood swing kind of person throughout my entire life. It just is not something. I'm not saying I don't ever get in a mood. I'm not saying I don't ever get angry. I don't say that, but I've not been a mood swing kind of a person ever. I'm not, it's not who I am, not what I do. And I've had zero symptoms of menopause at all. The only reason I know that I've had the menopause is because I no longer have periods. That is what happened for me. My period stopped. I was like, oh, okay. And I can really see that I have never had thinking about that kind of thing in that, you know, ever. So it's fascinating, isn't it?
It is fascinating. It is fascinating. And I'm sure there are women listening to this and going, yeah, but that's you.
Yeah.
That's you, and me, it's different. And so it's interesting because you're saying you never had, you know, issues with periods. I did have issues with periods. I had painful periods. I had PMS just about every single month, let's say. But it was one day of just sensitivity. But I know now that symptoms are optional.
Yeah.
And when we're in the thick of it, or as I describe it, like the soup of symptoms, and I've been there, I know how impossible that sounds because we're so caught up in the story of, no, it's my hormones.
Yeah.
And the thing is about our hormones is that they can't exist beyond divine intelligence.
No, they're not there first. And you know, I want to say as I said, this particular area was not an area I struggled in, but I struggled in relationships. You know, I was a people pleaser and struggled there. And the same conversation, and it's fascinating. I love it when I see areas of my life and it's kind of like, well, that for you was just a breeze. And yet this, you know, the thinking, exactly like you say, when I was in the soup of all that, it didn't look like there was any other alternative for this person was doing this to me and I was feeling this way because of this, and which meant blah, blah, blah. And so it's the same thing, but just in a different area. And that's kind of what we do, isn't it? And it's like seeing none of it, like you say, how I relate to other people can't exist pre God, the divine intelligence, whatever you want to call it. It's not nothing is before that. That's source. And so when we realize that everything is after it, then it opens up this choice, doesn't it?
Yeah. And such a beautiful thing to relax into.
Absolutely.
Because just as I'm sure you've seen, you know, with relationships, that we can come in with I need to fix it and sort it out and everything. That, you know, it's the same with hormones.
Yeah.
That the narrative is so strong.
Yes.
That the hormones are somehow going crazy and that it's complicated and that we need to get in there and sort it out. And, you know, depending on the era, it's just estrogen and progesterone or both, or testosterone now. And we need to be like these experts in hormone management. No, we don't. That all comes from the divine. That always has been. And we are then living our life sort of on top of that, as it were. And when we create imbalance in our innocence through simply taking our thinking seriously,
Yep.
and not seeing the divine in it all, then we can experience challenges, struggle in any way that it likes to come into form to teach.
Yeah, that is just so beautiful, isn't it? Seeing that is so freeing, and it totally changes things when things happen, because we're here having a human experience. We are part of that divine having a human experience. And the way I see it now is like, we're meant to be here having a human experience, and it's kind of cool to experience lots of things, to experience love and experience, and even, who wants a story and Deborah was born and she lived happily ever after? That's really boring. We want to work this out. We want to experience, to see things. And I think for me, understanding that there is nothing that comes before divine intelligence, then it's always like, okay, so whatever is going on for me is an after effect. So if I think about that differently, if I see that differently, and what I really, really love about that as well is, what I see is that even that bit, we're not left alone to even work that bit out for ourselves. It's kind of like, okay, surrender to the divine intelligence and it will show you this. Because immediately then the next thing is, oh, okay, so it's after so I've got to work out what that is. And it's like, no, you don't even have, that's what, it's all done. This is really, it's such a done for you universe. It's kind of like, no, rest into that. And then what I see, exactly like you said about the menopause, and that we think we have to be an expert in this and an expert in that. And a lot of the people that I work with around relationships, it's kind of like, it's their partner, it's their sister, it's their friend, it's the person they work with, it's that this person needs to be different, needs to be fixed, they need to do something. And it's like, we don't need to be an expert in other people. We don't need to be, we just need to relax into where this divine intelligence is taking us. And then it blows my mind, and I'm sure you have had similar experiences, like sometimes when you're talking to somebody and you might think you can see an answer for them, and then over time they come back and tell you what's happened and what's gone on for them as they've seen things, and you're like, wow. I would never have told them to think it that way or do that or whatever. But as they've opened to this divine intelligence coming through them, they've seen something that is a perfect fit for them.
Yeah. Another beauty of the system that I've seen through my work is that it seems that our awareness of the divine is supposed to open up at midlife, if it hasn't already happened, because I like to look at, much more than thinking of hormones, I like to look at stages in our life as holding an energy, a pattern of energy. So, for example, a pattern of energy of a child, the curious, the wonder, the playful, etc., that is healthy and allows the child to blossom. Of an adolescence, it's the pushing of sovereignty, of standing on your own 2 feet, tasting the world for yourself, etc. That's the energy pattern of adolescence. And in our 20s and 30s, it seems that we can very much be on our own, but not actually on our own, but like that sort of like, go out into the world, plant your seed, see what the consequences are, etc., etc. And then if we come to midlife and we're still in a place of struggle and push and experiencing the challenges of life in a very heavy way, it seems like this sense of the divine bubbles to the surface and comes through in women very predominantly. It's sort of like more so than men, because we are in tune with this cycle. And so it's coming through, and we have a choice to medicate it away, this sensitivity, this sense of, look, towards the divine, or we can open up to it and allow that sort of bubbling to the surface to come all the way through and then lead us. And by accepting that energy pattern of a surfacing of the divine, if you like, not that it's not present before, but it seems that we're allowed to just get on with our life in the sort of rough and tumble of it. But by embracing that at midlife, that's going to preserve our health and allow us to flourish for decades, onwards. And the way I see it, we move through a rite of passage to an elder. And there's something very important about that role that in the West, at least, we've completely ignored, neutralized. I don't really know how to describe it. We don't give it the presence that it deserves. And so we're supposed to go through this sort of rite of passage to become an elder. And there is this healing journey available for us. And there is this bubbling to the surface of the divine. And we can relax again into that.
Wow, I've got tingles when you, that is just, yes, absolutely. I really, really see that. And I totally see, yeah, like you say, in the West, we've got rid of that role, haven't we? Like the matriarch, the grandma, that really, really, really important role that we have, like you say, had that rite of passage to do. And I don't think I'd ever really seen it like that, but I am really seeing that as my role in my family. As you're saying it, I'm like, oh wow, that's what I'm actually doing in my family now. I'm guiding. I had a beautiful conversation with my son over the weekend. He's just turned 25, and he's excited about life, and he's doing some, he's doing some really, really lovely things out in the world. And I could just see all of the things through his conversations that were perfect for who he is and where he is right now. And I could also hear the learning that he has still got to do. But it wasn't, I had zero desire to say anything about that, because he's a young man. He's not there. That learning isn't, and I could see, and I was smiling to myself and really enjoying the absolute gorgeousness and deliciousness of who he is in this moment, and seeing, wow, and because of who he is right now, I could really see who he's going to become. I could really sense that and see that. But equally, all I had to do was hold the space and continue being who I am being, to guide him there. I could really see that. And that, all of that was kind of crystallizing for me as you spoke there. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's exactly what this is at this time in my life. It's kind of, and I don't need, I've got two gorgeous little grandchildren who exactly, they're holding that gorgeous childish energy of just enthusiasm and curiosity and learning something new every day. And it's so gorgeous to watch. And I have no desire for them to be me at this point. That's exactly where they are. And I've got two daughters and my son. And absolutely, it's kind of like, and I think in the West, we have this idea that, I know for me, actually sort of saying, I'm 60 this year, I'm going to have 60 conversations. It wouldn't have been that long ago where I would have thought, you can't say that. You can't tell people that you're, a 60. You don't want people to think that or know that about you. And I was like, we're not honoring who we are when we reach this age and older and live into that more maturity and what we have got going for us, when we have embraced the divine and allowed it in and allowed it. So I can absolutely see, yeah, my role in my family is a really pivotal one, actually.
Yeah. and no one crowns you in it in this society. But
No.
like in some other society, you would be sitting on the throne, you know, given that that sense of where you are as an elder and that respect. And here it's almost like, you know, we're sort of in the fog looking for it and wondering, you know, what's out there past 40, past 50, past 60, you know, what is out there for me? Because it's just, it's about the collapse of, you know, family, extended family, tribes, or whatever it is, how we used to live, and how we've just all been sort of like cut off and, you know, in a little path, and the medicated path, especially, you know, from midlife on, this sense of, oh, that's it now, you know, chronic disease increases, etc., etc., etc. Medicate yourself into the old age home or something like that, when that's just not the role that humanity needs. And it's so obvious.
I am definitely not ready to be medicated I've got more life in me now than you know, oh my gosh. And I can really feel how much I have to offer now at this stage in my life. And I can remember my grandma, she lived into her 90s, and I can remember sort of saying to her about being, and she said, I don't feel any older now than I did when I married your granddad. And I think she was about 17 or 18. You know, she said, I don't feel any different. She said, don't wait to feel different, because you just won't. And I am, you know, I've sort of, it's so true. You know, we don't, in one sense, I feel very different, but then equally that sense of, I think we are very, very strongly invited in our society at the moment to medicate ourselves into old age, and to look at these, rather than see these signs and symptoms and the dis-ease that we sometimes get around this age as something that needs to be treated with medication, rather than seeing it as actually wake up to who you are, wake up. I just think that is beautiful. I'm so excited by this conversation. I don't know what I was expecting today, but this is the beauty of it. But this is just amazing. It's just like, it is. And I just think there are so many women, like you say, coming to this age and believing actually, oh, well, that's it, you know, this empty nest syndrome, and who am I now? What is there for me? What do I do? And yeah, quietly just wither away, I guess. And it's like, no, absolutely no, that it is so needed. As I say, you know, when I was with my son, and very, very often when I'm with my daughters too, what I see is actually, it's such a needed role, that, you know, a grandma in the family, you know, to help with the children, to be, I don't know, who I am to the children. I absolutely love being their grandma. I'm kind of their naughty grandma who, you know, what do we do? But it's and at home it's good, you know, they need their mom to guide them in certain ways, but that's not my job. So I can kind of explore with them, you know, and do things. It's great. It's really, really beautiful. And then hold a really lovely space for both my daughters and my son, with who I can see they are going to progress to be. It's just beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah. And what's so interesting is that for the longest time, science has been asking the question, why would women live beyond a reproductive age? Right? What would be the purpose of that? Right? Why would that make any evolutionary sense? And of course, you in that role, it's so obvious for you, and I'm sure the mother of the children, if it's your daughter, or your daughter's
my daughter,
your daughter, the absolute wonder of you in that role without having a baby attached to your breast, right? Yes, of course you need to be beyond the reproductive age. Of course you need to have gone through a rite of passage to get to where you are today, to be the wiser elder, to be in that grandma role. And it's not only in the grandma role, it's in that elder role. But
Yeah.
science, like I said, for the longest time, like, well, why does that make any sense? And then they had to go off and investigate orca whales who also have, who the females go through menopause, and discover that the pods that are led by postmenopausal orca whales do much better than the pods that aren't. And once she's not, busy with her own childcare, whale childcare, she can see the bigger picture, lead the pod, find food when it's scarce, deal with all the things that whales need to do. But, in the human scientists, they couldn't work it out, this role that's so obvious, and you're sitting in and, enjoying and seeing the value of. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's so, I mean, I have to say, until, I love my role, I love who I am. And I actually saw something on Facebook the other day. It was it was actually a man talking about he's got small children, like, a baby, waking him up in the night, and small kids, and sort of saying, this is a really, really tough time, but it's the best time of your life, and don't, miss a day of it, and because it's absolutely the best time of your life. And I read it and I kind of thought, do you know what? The best time of your life is the moment that you're in, because I can equally see, I loved my children being small, but what hit me when I read it was, when I was a child, it was brilliant. When I was a teenager, it was brilliant. When I was, the best time of you, it's not about which bit of this is best. And it's not about sitting here and thinking, oh gosh, I'm old now, I'm not a mom, I haven't got small kids, oh yeah, my life's over. It's like, no, it's just the beginning of a story, the middle of the story, the end of a story. You need all of those pieces to make a story. You don't want a story with just a beginning and end. You don't want a story that's just the middle. You want it all. There isn't a better piece. There isn't, and as I said, I don't think I have, until you spoke and said those words, I don't think I have seen my role that clearly. I know that I love my life. I know that I love who I am. I know that I love what I do, but I hadn't seen it in that way, which has just kind of really put a ton of icing on top of it. So thank you. But it's that, isn't it? It's like, yeah, the moments when you have a small baby that wakes you up 10 times in the day, that definitely, there is a beauty and an honor of being in that place. But there's equally an absolute, I love it that I can tidy a room and the room can stay tidy. Now I haven't got a 2-year-old that's just going to come and because when my grandchildren come round, they totally remind me of what it was like to have small kids, when you didn't, you can't go to the toilet on your own, you can't do anything. And I love that, but equally, I can absolutely, I love who I am and where I am now. And it's not, so to me, it is about appreciate who you are and where you are now in this moment, in this day. And there's just going to be more and more beauty and amazing things and wonderful things to come in different packages and in different ways through all of it. There's not a day of it needs to be wasted, is there really?
Yeah. Yeah. And we're so lucky, because even though we have a chronic lack of role models, for that could say, oh, wow, look what this woman's doing, in her 60s or 70s or 80s, etc. We're guided. And when we learn to listen into that guidance, we'll get there, no matter what. And so the whole story of struggle at midlife, exhausting symptoms, I know what it's like, because I've been there, and there's a completely different path that nature has set up for us, and that takes us all the way, to becoming an elder, and the joy that we can get at every step of the way once we tune in to guidance and allow ourselves to walk that path. It's already there.
And that's what, from a very different perspective around relationships, that's what I saw. The guidance was always there. It was just, I didn't know I was allowed to be me. I didn't know that. I thought I had to be something someone else wanted me to be. I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think, you know, and we all have those kind of stories somewhere about, and I guess that must, I would think, add to difficulties of menopause. It comes out in us. It comes out in different people in different ways, doesn't it? The calling, that time to, there's a perfect path here that you can just walk, or there's all this struggle and difficulty if you want
innocently want it, right?
Oh,
We say it's
absolutely,
innocent.
absolutely. I mean, one of the things, I had an amazing conversation with Dominic Scafidi, one of my conversations. He actually recorded it. It's on his YouTube, not mine, but do go and find that if you're watching this. But I had a brilliant conversation with Dominic Scafidi, and he just puts it beautifully, and he just said, well, don't worry, you know, if you're headed in the wrong direction, don't worry, it will just keep getting harder, and don't worry, it will just keep getting more and more harder and harder and harder. And that's really, you know, that's when exactly what you're describing with menopause symptoms and all those kinds. If you continue to think that, if you continue to believe that, if you continue to look in this direction, you're just it's gonna get harder and harder, because that was my experience of relationships. You know, I was headed in the wrong direction innocently, and I just kept going and just kept going. You know, and in the end I ended up in a women's refuge, and it's kind of like, I need to rethink this, don't I? This just isn't working. But I can see that the entire time there was a beautiful path unfolding. And once I kind of gone, yeah, I'm going to get on that path. I'm going to wake up to this and move in that direction. And since I've been doing that, you know, that the path has just got, it's amazing. It's brilliant. You know, conversations like this, it's just more and more is opening up and becoming available and being seen. And it's just amazing. And yeah, so it is. When you've had enough of the struggle, let me know. Whatever it is, and whatever it is we're struggling with, because yeah, we're, you know, the two things we're bringing to this conversation quite a lot is the menopause and relationships. But you know, I've seen people who do that in their business. You know, it's kind of like they're working hard, and maybe in one sense it looks as if they're successful, but it's really hard and really taking a toll on them, and they're really not enjoying it. And it's another place, isn't it? Our health, our relationships, money, we have these areas, don't we?
That we think that's the real area.
Yeah, that's different.
That circumstance is different. That circumstance is creating my experience. But as I like to say about everything, there's always a different experience to be had.
Yeah.
And of a relationship, of a hot flush, of, you know, of everything. There's always a different experience to be had, and of aging. And we don't need to know what the experience is. It's just knowing that it exists, that there is another experience to be had, and then that comes to us. So the simplicity of the journey is always there, and we're blessed with that.
I think that is so beautiful, the fact that, yeah, all we have to know is something else is possible. I think it is, like, when I look back over my struggles, it was definitely that blindness to there being anything else. It was like, I have to, and then I would try harder and harder and harder. I just thought it was, I'm not trying hard enough, I'm not doing it enough, I'm not kind of, you know, rather than maybe I'm actually doing it wrong, or, you know, maybe this pain and this suffering is saying go in a different direction, look for a different possibility. Whereas I heard it innocently in, no, do it more, do it harder, do it faster, do it more. And yeah, at some point got to the end of having anything left in me to be able to do it more. And so I didn't, like, willingly surrender. Like, it was more of a collapse into a heap of, I don't know what to do anymore. And that was when then that moment of, right, okay, so you're prepared to listen now, you're prepared to look towards the divine, or what, the universe, whatever word makes sense to you, you're prepared to actually look in this direction. And that is that whole, don't worry, it'll get worse, don't worry, it'll get worse.
Yeah. I was totally caught up in that with my symptoms, because I was exploring the self-help world and thinking, oh yeah, if I just meditate, no, if I just write my gratitude journal, no, if I just do yoga, no, if I just do like all these techniques. And if you're inspired to do any of those, please do. Yes. But I was experiencing it as, oh, that's what I must do successfully in order to feel different. And then when I didn't feel different, then I felt a failure at all those things that I was trying to do. Whereas now I would hopefully see the energy that was involved in that sense of desperation, of constriction, of I'm not good enough. Like, that was all wrapped around all of those things for me. And now I would know, oh, that's not the path. That's not where the truth is. That's not where clarity is. Where's the lightness? And that's always true, whatever the circumstance. So for me, it was like the feeling and all the symptoms. And for you, in relationships. But it's for anyone, it's wherever their struggle is, where's the lightness? Yeah. Where's the other experience? And the feeling guides us.
And what I'm really loving about this conversation is what I see as well is that our communication, when I talk about being with my son, being with my daughters, being with my grandchildren, the smallest part of our communication is in the words. But people feel who we are being. And what I can see now for me is having an understanding of that and seeing that I can be there for my son and my daughters and nod and smile at their conversations and not even have to disagree in areas where I kind of think, yeah, you've got something else to see there. I can stand in the energy of knowing that, and they are pulled towards that energy without even, whereas often when you communicate it in words, people hear words and their intellect and their mind kicks in and disagrees. Whereas if you just stand, I have so seen this with all three of my children and my grandchildren. If I stand in that energy, just stand in it and know it, just be a beacon of that, of inconceivable love and light, then no matter what the conversation is, and even if I'm just being their mum and kind of going, yeah, that's tough, where everything in my being is kind of like, it's not really tough, sweetheart, but I hear what you're saying. There's a way. They are pulled towards that energy. There is something in it that knows. And that to me then is them coming through exactly what you've talked about, this rite of passage of kind of seeing, yeah, there was always something else there. There was always something else. I was, this, and it doesn't make the struggles, because what I can see in my childhood and in my upbringing, I mean, my parents really loved me, but they just had no idea. They did not know. They didn't know how to guide me. They didn't know how to give me this because they didn't have it. They didn't know how relationships work. They didn't know how to guide me in any way at all. And what I am eternally grateful for, and what I'm seeing in this conversation and other conversations that I've had, is it doesn't matter what area you see it, so long as you are aware that it's the same in all areas. And then you hold that energy and you hold that space as a grandmother or whatever. You hold that space, and I can see that's what I do for my children and grandchildren. I don't hit them over the head with it. I don't force them with it at all. I hold that space and that energy, and I know that they're going to come to that because it's the strongest energy.
Yeah. And what's amazing is you talking about your parents in their innocence, you know, doing the best they could.
Absolutely.
And you breaking the chain just through understanding and creating a completely new path for generations.
Yes.
And again, it must be the struggles that so many experience is because we lack that figure, that elder, that wiser person. You know, where do people get their wisdom from? You know, is it from a TikTok, or is it from someone who's been through life and has a love to share? That, I mean, it's more than, you know, the experience or the understanding, but it's like through love, sharing that feeling. And I'm imagining, you know, when there were extended families, there would be that very clear personal few people that would be the guiding light, that everyone would just know, oh, you know, that's who you turn to, and that's the guidance. And then people just got lost because that all broke down. And now you've established it again for your family. And we're all being pushed to create that elder role, you know, at a certain time in life. And then we have the choice to step into it and really embrace it and allow that partnership with the divine to lead us into that elder role.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, yes, I can see. And again, you know, it goes back to, don't worry, it will just get worse and worse. The more that we resist that and don't do that, and the more that we have thrown away this idea and been, because I can definitely see, as I said, this whole thing, yeah, I'm just going to put it out there that it's my 60th birthday and I'm this, you know, and I'm not 21 anymore, and I'm not, you know, my body isn't the same, who I am isn't the same, but it doesn't make me less. And I think that was, our society gives us a message that as we become, and I think it's a strong message for women even more so. I mean, obviously, having never been a man, I don't know, but it almost feels like men are allowed to sort of get older and go grey and be distinguished, where a woman is a little bit like, no, you've got to, wasn't there a song or something, keep young and beautiful if you want to be loved? And you really hear that message a lot. You know, it's like your body's got to be perfect, your stomach's got to be flat, you know, you've got you can't have grey hair, you can't do this. And it's kind of like, it's a tough thing to live up to when you're actually being called to take the role, the much needed role of the elder, this next step in your life. It's like, you know, I'm not meant to be a toddler or a small child anymore, or an adolescent or a midlife person. It's not, that's not who I am now anymore. But I think actually seeing that just because you are not those things, it doesn't mean that there isn't just as beautiful a role for you, and there is beauty in who you are in this moment, importance, and as in all of them, you know, it doesn't, no one role is better than another, but just seeing, yeah, okay, so, and in many ways it's actually quite an honor to be this now. You know, to be stepping into that, and seeing the people that I have looked up to in my life, that my life would have been much less without them. And like you say, I can really see, like with my daughter, with the children, you know, I have the children one day a week. I just have them here for the whole day so she can do. And that's really, I know she's just kind of like, oh, I can't wait. Friday in our house is grandma day. You know, I'm grandma on Friday and the kids come here and all I do is be grandma. We just do all sorts of stuff. And I know how important that time is to her, because I can remember my mom having my kids too. And being like, I adore my kids, but it's really nice to have those few hours when I, you know, can just be me for a bit, sort of thing. So
yeah, and what a blessing that you can give that, and she can enjoy that gift. And I wanted to go back to something you said about the change. I mean, we do call it midlife change, but this pressure on women it's either not to change, which is, don't talk about your age. Like you said, don't show gray hairs. Don't, keep dressing like, a teenager or whatever it is. So don't change. Take the hormones because they're supposed to keep you unchanged. That's this message. And then, like, at some point, she's just let it go. Yeah. That's the choice you seem to have.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing seen as graceful or strong in the aging process. There's not, it's just not valued.
No, and it's not at all, is it?
Yeah. And so women often come into midlife and they feel this pressure because it's everywhere of the don't change, keep looking young, keep thinking that you're going to be, the same. We don't need women or men to be the same, actually, because like I said, there's this energetic pattern for each age, and we will all benefit if we relax into that and embrace it and not struggle and say, oh, should I tell anyone that I'm turning 60 or turning 50 or turning 40, wherever it is,
whatever age it is, 60, 70. You can see it with all, I see it with people, oh my gosh, I'm going to be 40 soon. Don't tell anyone and let's pretend I'm not, and let's hang on to my 30s till the last. And very much I sort of got here and thought, do you know what? I am. And you can see there's still a vibrancy and a life and a beauty and something. It's not, I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy looking at it and seeing, in this conversation, sort of seeing that and thinking, what a crazy thing that we have done to ourselves to set the world up in such a way that it is like you said. I know I can see through all my relationship stuff that the big mistake that I made was not allowing myself to be me. And it's like, this is who I am right now. Fully just be who you are right now, because that's the divine, that's the calling of this connection. It's like, don't be something or someone you are not. Be you, because you are uniquely you in this world. And that was the intention of the divine. That's what's intended, which is why when we fight against it and take hormones or do these things to try and stay being something we're not and everything, it's not the natural path. And when we're not taking the natural path, it's difficult. It doesn't work. I can really vouch for that. Trying not to be who you are does not work. It's like that. Makes me think of that whack-a-mole thing. You push something down and it's just going to pop up here, because it can't be held back. Truth can't be pushed away and held back. But it can't. It's like the tides of the sea, isn't it? It's like the tide is going to come in and out no matter what you do. Where I live here in North Devon, the closest beach that I am to, they tried to make it into a harbour, and it's like a rugged North Devon coast, and the sea was kind of going, you can't have a harbour here. So they built the harbour. Sea said, no, you can't have a harbour here. So they rebuilt the harbour, and the sea says, no, you can't have a harbour here. So they rebuilt the harbour. And now, that's good. It's called like a quay and a harbour, but there's no quay or harbour there because the sea just is not going to allow it. And I think it's the same, isn't it? We sort of say, right, I'm going to stay being this young person or this whatever. And it's like, nah, not who you are. It's just not who you are. That's like, embrace who you are and what you are, and see the equal beauty in that than what you're trying to be and fight against, because you're just not going to win here.
And it's interesting you mentioned whack-a-mole, because many women, I was experiencing that as well with my symptoms, because on my journey I was trying to do all kinds of, treatments and take potions and herbs. I was more on a natural route, but it was really like a whack-a-mole. It was like, oh, okay, I'll deal with the migraines. Okay, those have gone down. Oh no, but now the PMS is even worse. Oh no, but now this is even worse. Oh no. And this is what happens at midlife, because there is this bubbling to the surface of divine wisdom, or the wiser woman, as I call it in my work, or however you want to describe it, it's the true you coming through. And it wants to come through, and it wants to guide you. And it's the path of least resistance, but we create in our innocence all this resistance around it. But it will just keep on, keep on, keep on. And we can try and mute it. We can try and neutralize it. We can try and turn the volume all the way down to zero. And it will just keep finding another way to communicate with us. And in the end, we discover the easiest way is to relax into the calling of what it's asking us. And for so many women at midlife, it's to slow down.
Yes.
To lighten up. It's so simple, but we have these stories of, oh my goodness, but life is so busy and life is,
yeah,
and it's
not that, not that.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
not that. And most of our not that comes from thoughts and beliefs that we've inherited that aren't, we've never even looked at them. We've never even kind of looked at, is that genuinely important to me? We often don't even see these things. There's somebody out there, ancient thoughts and beliefs. They probably weren't even our parents. They're probably our parents. You know what I mean? They're just so ancient, these thoughts and beliefs or whatever that we're just buying into and in our innocence. And absolutely, you've said that so many times during this isn't a blame anyone or a victim. This is like seeing there is, and that path of least resistance and allowing and relaxing into is just so beautiful when you just do that. Because for so many years I did not do that on any level at all. It was just one big, I've got to do it, 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 I've got to do it. And I've just got to be it in a really, and I am it. So it's so easy to be it. No, it's a being state of who are you showing. It's so inviting. It's like getting into a really, really gorgeous, warm, bubbly bath and just being you, rather than this whole fight of trying to be something that you think you should be. You've built up this idea of who you should be. So, oh my gosh, this has just been an absolutely beautiful, beautiful conversation. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. That's so gorgeous. I don't know, is there anything else you want to add to anything else?
No, I'm just looking at your sign, Dare to Be You, and I think that is, such a theme for women come midlife, when they're feeling this struggle and they can't understand it, and there's all these symptoms going on. That's the message that's coming through, because that's what the intelligence within wants. It wants you to be truly you, to exist in that loving feeling, to be guided by divine guidance and not by society telling me I need to be, etc., etc., etc. And it seems so simple, and it seems impossible that could be a solution. I don't even really want to use that word, but like to so many struggles. Like, how could it be so simple? But that's all it is. Coming back to your true you, letting go of the stories of who you think you should be. And luckily, so many women do get to that, because it's because they see it in the end. Oh, I just need to do that. I just need to not work, 12 hours a day, and not try and not change, and not try, because it just feels better. And so they discover it in the end. And that's the beauty of this path. And yeah.
I think in the end, we're almost given no choice but to see it, really, aren't we? Because when we continue to fight nature, I mean, nature, the divine, is ultimately going to win in the end, because you can't, like we say, it's a great big game of whack-a-mole, and it just it can't be held back, can it? What
yeah
is. So at some point, in whatever way we get to a point of, okay, let's hear what actually is. And I think it is, we have this idea, I guess, that what it's going to be, because we have been fed this line of that getting old is this terrible thing. And I can't tell you how many times people sort of say, oh, well, yeah, that's it. Oh, yeah, oh, this getting old is no fun. And that there's a whole thing around that, isn't it? And yet I know for me, I am determined. Way before this, I was like determined to change the narrative around that. I could see that, because, you know, no end of people were kind of saying, I heard it so much, you know, from my parents and from other people. Yeah, there's no fun in getting old. Yeah, there's no fun in getting old. No, there's no fun in getting old. And I'm there thinking, well, actually, you know, now I'm grandma to these kids, and I can do things with these kids that I sort of didn't do with my own. And you know, having these conversations, doing things, I'm kind of like, well, I just no, I'm definitely not in the camp of there's no fun getting old. I think it's the best fun. Yeah, I love it. I'm really, really excited by this role and this next stage of life, and what is still to come. You know, I was in the car with my partner the other day, and we're looking to move house, and that's a whole another long story, but I'm kind of looking at that. And I've seen a really lovely piece of land where I would like to build a house. And he kind of said to me, you do know how old you are, right? And I went, yep, the perfect time. This is the perfect time of life to be building a house. And I said, I've got at least 40 more good years in me. I'm going way past 100. I'm like, yeah, I've got at least that I'm going to build and love and nurture and be in this house. And he's gone, yeah, I know you will. Okay, let's look at it then. It's like, I'm not interested. And somebody, I was at a party a few weeks ago, and an older lady actually said to me, I wouldn't be doing that now if I were you. I'd be thinking about living somewhere where you don't have to go upstairs, living somewhere where you don't have to drive, living somewhere where you don't have to do this. And I was like, I don't think so. I'm going to work. There'll be ways, you know, the divine is guiding me. There will always be a way. There will be something. And I don't know what it'll be. You know, I don't know whether that will happen. I don't know what my story is going to be. But what I do know is I am not ready to lie down and kind of think, yeah, this is it then. Just give me, I don't know, a book and an easy chair and just leave me completely to just vegetate away now. It's like, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think that's the plan either. I mean, the divine plan. But for again, once we tune into the guidance, then we'll know. And it's so obvious. And the whispers come through. And yeah, it's an easier journey to take that way.
So if anyone is watching this and they want to know more about you and what you do and how they can get in touch with you, what's the best way of doing that? I'll put something in the comment, you know, in the blurb underneath this on YouTube. What is the best way to find out more about you and contact you?
Yeah, so the easiest way is via my website, thewiserwoman.com, and there I offer, there's loads of stuff to read on my blog, and I have a book also, The Wiser Woman's Guide to Perimenopause and Menopause, and I'm always happy to answer questions about this time of change for women. And I have an online course, and I offer coaching 1-to-1, and you can find me on Facebook and on Twitter. And yes, I'm always happy to create conversations and help where I can. Yeah, because there's so much, especially in the UK, there's so much of a negative narrative around midlife change, and it's really all made up. Hurrah!
That is so amazing that it is the fact that it is all made up. It's like you can completely recreate this. And I know I've got my ideas of who I am, but that's not necessarily right for everyone. And you know what, but it is, yeah, who do you want to be? Who do you want to recreate yourself as? Then just, yeah, it's made up and you can do it. And it's so beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank
you so much for this conversation. It's just been amazing. Let me stop recording.